I'm here to explain why layoffs are happening and how you can position yourself to not get laid off in the future. My name is Anthony. I work at Microsoft, and as you can tell, Microsoft has laid off close to 7,000 people this year and counting. So you have to ask yourself, why are companies laying off people in high quantities in the year 2025? And that question is very loaded because it comes with a lot of different answers. With this being said, layoffs have been happening since 2022, basically. And in 2025, it actually hasn't been as bad as you would think it would be. And this goes back to 2020 and 2021 when COVID locked down the entire world. You see, interest rates were so low that companies could basically borrow money for free. And this caused, the budgets of these companies to skyrocket and workforce to skyrocket as well to meet the demands of an online world. With this, booming profits, booming revenue, we got people with 2-3 months of experiences getting, 150 grand a year in salary and total compensation. However, with the downslopes of the economy, the companies have had to retract some of those roles, and unfortunately, people have to get laid off because of that. In addition with this, companies also have to look in the future and figure out what they need to invest in to compete with all of the other competitors in their field. For example, AI. We all know about it. We all know what it takes to run all of these LLMs, but that costs a lot of money. And what's the best way to free up money to invest into these data centers and all of these other competitions? Cutting employees. Now, unfortunately, on top of that, AI has been marketed as a thing that increases productivity, but unfortunately, all of the business leaders are looking at it as a way to save money and with that, reducing workforce. So enough looking at why layoffs are happening, and let's pivot onto how, as tech professionals, we can improve the likelihood of us not getting laid off. So I like to always look at, from a third-party perspective, if you were to leave your job the next day, would business operations go on without any hindrance for the coming weeks to months? And if the answer is yes, then you should be worried. You need to provide more value. If the answer is no, then you're in a really good spot because that company has a reason to support your salary on payroll to provide business impact. But you might be asking yourself, if I answered yes to that question, how can I improve my value? How can I, answer no to that question? And there's a lot of ways to do that. So I think one of the best ways to actually provide more value to your company is to first read. I know this might sound cliche, but usually when you come to a company, when you're first starting out within the first year or two, there's a lot of documentation to digest, and not everyone takes the time to digest that information. If you can be one of the select few engineers to digest all of that information, become a sponge, and whenever anyone has a question or problem, you're the first one that can be able to answer that question, that's providing value. That's very, very, very good to improve your likelihood of not getting laid off. Secondly, there can be a lot of different, issues with that documentation that you might find. For example, if a piece of paper says something here and another piece of paper says something different, that can be very confusing for someone that is, within the middle of a CI and needs that information pronto. So that is one thing that I think is very beneficial for you to improve your likelihood of, providing value to that company. After you read and digest that information, you'll have a lot more information to provide input on those higher level and team meetings, where you can then implement these suggestions to improve day-to-day workflows and make things less costly. After doing this, the world is really your oyster. You can implement those changes, and then you will free up more time to even produce more higher visibility projects for those higher ups, and then your name gets starting to circle around. For example, in my team, we have had a lot of different problems with automation within our environment. So we spent, maybe 2 to 3 weeks of really ironing down our automation on our deployments. And then with that, it gave us a lot more time to deploy newer projects that had higher level impact across the organization, where we had hundreds of millions of dollars flowing around. This is what you call safety. So with this being said, I hope this video helped provide more security in your role. And if it didn't, it at least gave you some pointers to be more secure in your role. If you like this type of video and want to see more like this, please subscribe and hit that like button down below. I appreciate you coming around the channel, and have a good rest of your night or evening. See you later. Bye.